Nerd alert! Learning is important, right?
Yes, exactly. What a bunch of nerds.
Nerd alert!
Right.
Marketing Architects.
Hello, and welcome to the Marketing Architects, a research-first podcast dedicated to answering your toughest marketing questions. I'm Elena Jasper. I run the marketing team here at Marketing Architects, and I'm joined by my co-host, Rob DeMars, the Chief Product Architect of Misfits and Machines.
Hello, Elena.
Hello, we are back with your weekly Nerd Alert. Every week I'll take a deep dive into academic marketing research and translate its complex ideas into simple, understandable language for Rob and, of course, for all of you. Are you ready to nerd out, Rob?
I've got a major case of the nerds. Let's do this.
Perfect. Let's get into it. As always, we'll link the research we cover in the episode notes. This week I read a study titled What's Working in Humorous Advertising, and this was published by WARC. This is going to be a fun one, but before we get into things, Rob, you always seem to have some sort of joke handy. What is your go-to podcast appropriate, emphasis on that, joke right now?
Podcast appropriate? Darn it. All right. Well, hey, since this is a marketing effectiveness podcast, how many advertising copywriters does it take to change a light bulb?
How many?
I'm not changing anything. How many art directors does it take to change a light bulb?
How many?
Does it have to be a light bulb? How many account people does it take to change a light bulb?
How many, Rob?
Can I get back to you on that? Bum.
Oh my gosh. You have told me that joke before. It's a good one.
It's always good.
Yeah.
Never
That's
gets
a
old.
great joke. It's a little something for everybody in that joke. I knew you'd have something for that. I didn't even have a doubt because you've got a good sense of humor, and humor, laughing, comedy, it's important to most people. In fact, according to the Knot, 69% of people ranked a sense of humor among the top 5 attributes when considering a potential dating partner, and 45% considered humor the most important factor over a similar cultural background, appearance, education level, and financial state. So clearly, it pays to be funny. It's clear that people, for the most part, like humor. But Rob, how do you think brands do when it comes to humor? Do you think humor in advertising has grown or shrunk in the past 20 years?
It might just be because I'm getting old and nostalgic, but I feel like advertising was funnier back in the day. And I don't know if it's because there were only so many platforms a brand could be on back in the day. So you could really spend the time to develop a funny narrative around your brand. And now it's like, I got to be everywhere. And so your message gets diluted. And I could be totally wrong on this. The data, I know you're going to tell me here in a minute if brands are getting funny or not. But it just feels like subjectively that humor is used less. And when it is used, it's not as funny. It's maybe even a little bit safe.
Yeah, your opinion would be correct. Humor in ads, it has dropped. It's dropped by 37%.
What?
Over the past 20 years. So it's been a big blow.
30.
To humor
I love
in
that data point, by the way. 37%.
I know.
Like,
I don't know. Don't ask me how they got to that because I don't know.
That level of precision's amazing on the humor meter.
But really, that is a shame because when brands are using humor, well, it does improve your results. So here's some more data points for you. 72% of people would choose a brand that uses humor over a competitor that doesn't. And 91% of consumers prefer brands to be funny. Yet only 33% of ads are described as humorous. And Effie winning campaigns, they're 12% more likely to use humor compared to others. In IPA winning ads, enjoyment was the second most common feature, right behind difference. So Rob, what's an example of a brand that you think succeeds at using humor in advertising?
I love and always will love the Allstate campaign. I'm a huge fan of Mayhem. I feel like they've done such a great job of, and I think Dean Winters, the actor who plays Mayhem, is amazing. If they ever change him, I'll stop liking those ads because he's just so part of that. But they do a wonderful job, in my opinion, of creating a narrative that's just endless. And it does a great job of dramatizing the problems that people have in a way that's hilarious. And whether I see them on television before movies, I see them use Mayhem quite a bit now as well. And it's always gets a good laugh from the audience, and it's good.
I agree. I love those ads. I was thinking about this too. And have you heard of the brand True Classic?
No.
So they're like a t-shirt company, But I would encourage everybody to go to look up their ads. They have really funny advertisements. I actually just got targeted with one on YouTube and watched the whole thing, which does not happen often. But yeah,
Wow.
I would go look up True Classic. They're doing some really, really funny stuff. So let's talk about why it works so well. First of all, humor, it magnifies our memories. So neuroscience shows that laughter activates our brain's reward system, which makes brands more memorable and distinctive. The study talks about brands like Aldi, which turned their Christmas mascot, Kevin the Carrot, into a cultural icon, generating 618 million pounds in incremental sales over 6 years. Or Specsavers should have gone to Specsavers tagline. They've used that for over 20 years, proving that a consistent joke can become a long-term brand asset. Now, I personally don't really know Kevin the Carrot on Specsavers. That's a UK brand. So it was hard, these examples. I was like, I don't really know how funny that is, but I bet it is. But an example our audience in the United States might like is Progressives becoming your parents line. Things like that
Right.
can be very memorable. The study also points out that relatable humor can be a game changer for brands. So think about Snickers' You're Not You When You're Hungry campaign. It taps into this universal truth, and it has driven 376 million in global sales growth over 10 years. One of my favorite takeaways from the study is that humor is not just about making people laugh, it can drive brand fame. The study shows that brands that combine celebrity power with humor get outsized results. Super Bowl commercials start to make a lot of sense now. Old Spice's The Man Your Man Could Smell Like is a prime example. It's over the top, absurd, but it completely revitalized that brand. WARC also shares best practices to use humor to drive memorability. Create a peak memory moment, be distinctive, be consistent, and break the dullness barrier. But Rob, if humor works so well in advertising, there's all this data to support it. Why do you think so many brands stay away from it?
Being a jokester is a tough business, right? If you're like, okay, it's risky. Are you going to offend somebody? Especially if you're, trying to be a good brand steward, you have to take, definitely it elevates the risk. You could potentially offend, and then you also have to deal with subjectivity. What you find funny might be different than what I find funny. But I think at the end of the day, I think that humor's hard. There's a reason why some of the top Netflix series right now are stand-ups, is because it's a craft. I mean, it's a real craft to be able to sustain someone's attention and make them laugh. And I think that sometimes we think, well, it's just a stupid joke, right? Like that's just easy, right? Let's crank up the joke machine and attach it to our product and it works, but it's harder than that.
Agreed. You nailed it. The study, they really focused on that first reason you gave, which is risk. And that humor needs cultural sensitivity. So if you make a wrong move, it can backfire. So they said the keys to test your humor, make sure it lands with different audiences before going all in on it, which I think as
Totally.
fans of pre-testing, we'd probably believe in too. But if you are looking for a competitive edge, like you said, humor is really tough to do, but it is a huge advantage. It cuts through ad fatigue,
Yes.
makes your brand more human, and it drives real business results, as we saw in this study. So maybe it's time for us to stop playing it safe and start trying to make people laugh again. But first, let me wrap up before we get into discussion. Let me wrap up with our Rob GPT. Humor in advertising is like a signature sauce at a crowded food festival. It grabs attention, makes the experience memorable, and keeps people coming back for more. But just like with food, the right humor has to match the brand's flavor. When done well, it creates a lasting impression and gets people talking.
I think that's great. And I think that just the right flavor is the trick. How do you do it so that it truly connects to the brand and isn't just funny for funny's sake? That's the craft, right?
Right. And I think that's where Super Bowl ads, I know they're easy to use an example, but sometimes you can create a really funny ad, but do you remember who it's for? I know we talked about that with like Little Caesars, and that was kind of funny, but didn't really connect with them versus, so Little Caesars, they had the eyebrows flying off people's faces. We're like, all right, that's
Yes.
funny, but it doesn't really remind you of Little Caesars. And Pringles, they had the mustaches flying.
Love
Very
the
similar
Pringles.
concept, but
yeah,
a lot more
they
memorable.
nailed it.
I
They
think.
nailed it. Absolutely. Totally attached to the brand.
Yeah, so it has to be that clear connection there. That's it for this episode of The Marketing Architects. We'd like to thank Taylor De Los Reyes for producing the show. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, and if you like the podcast, please leave us a review. Now go forth and build great marketing.
You can't just be wacky for wacky's sake.
You're right. Like a brand can hear this and say, oh, we're going to go out and just create funny ads. But most brands, they don't have endless budget
Right.
to just
right,
throw out humor and see
exactly.
what lands. So yeah, most brands, it's like, all right, if I'm going to use humor, you're right. It also has to be persuasive because they need that immediate impact.
Marketing architects.